The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook, download their top-rated app, and use promo code RTRS when you sign up. For every person that signs up, we get $1 million using that promo code. And brought to you by that's not true. Brought to you by LL Pavorsky Jewelers, where Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners go and get engaged, and Kornblau, the official law firm of the process. Also brought to you by the sponsor of If Not, Pick Will Convey Us 2 second rounders, Kinetic Skateboarding. Get 9.1% off your first order with promo code Dave Silver. On the show today, Daryl Morey decides to test our faith almost immediately by signing Dwight Howard to be the backup center, as chemistry does not matter. Mariel Shayok is gone. Norvel Pell is gone. Yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of a very important Sixers event. And as we record this, somebody's probably going to get signed right at the end of it. That would be my guess. Before we get started, we will do our annual Black Friday t-shirt sale next Friday. It'll be 30% off on Friday and then 15% the next 2 days. We'll have three new designs, and then we'll do a different color of the names shirt. We have put one of the designs on social media, the City Line series, which is not related to anything else. It was just something we thought of on our own. So go to our Twitter and our Instagram to see the City Line series. The Ricky Stateside Vodka will be on sale until Sunday. That is tomorrow, and then that's it. It's gone. So thank you to everyone who's bought it and posted it on social. We appreciate that. And one final thing, we're auctioning off a commercial on the Ricky for the Brandywine Valley SPCA. There's a link in this post, and you can have a commercial for your business, or you can talk shit about your friends, whatever you want. And a very nice emailer who has chosen to remain anonymous will not only match up to $1,000 for that, will also match another up to $1,000 for Coded by Kids. So whatever gets bid on the commercial will be doubled, and then we'll also donate to Coded by Kids. So go to the post for this specific podcast on rightstoRickySanchez.com, or it'll be in the Apple Podcast description. Without any further ado, Amos and the chef.
Larry, sweetie, the man is here.
Say the name, I say the name, I say the name.
We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We was right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We were right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. Say the name.
Welcome to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. I'm Spike Eskin, along with a guy whose second favorite team now has two players who were on his favorite team last year. That is Mike Levin.
Who's that?
Danny Green and Dwight.
I thought we were talking about the Pelicans.
Oh, no, the Lakers. I figured it goes, right. So it goes Lakers, Pelicans, then Sixers, or Lakers, Sixers, Pelicans? Or
Lakers, Pelicans, and then sort of a bunch of teams tied.
Wow. Well, we got to get right into this. So Sixers sign Dwight Howard to a league minimum deal. It's $2.6 million this year. I'm going to give a little background here. Counts $1.6 million against the cap. Important thing about the signing is that it is league minimum, so they still get their full mid-level exception, which is $5.6 million or something they can spend on one player or two. Dwight Howard played for Morey in Houston, where it ended poorly. He was supposedly staying in Los Angeles, according to a tweet from Dwight Howard, which basically said purple and gold forever or something, then ends up here. The story from Chris Haynes at Yahoo is that Joel Embiid started recruiting Dwight Howard. And the only other thing I have here is that Dwight Howard did say, I think like 3 days ago, that he basically played for free last year and wanted to get paid this year. And here we are. I don't know if you want my response first or yours.
I mean, I like that Joel is in the recruiting business. I think that is a positive.
Sure.
And that they,
He's-
seem to be working in tandem with that. And Dwight as a backup with the Lakers in limited minutes was very effective. His per 36 numbers are very good. He did all the limited things you wanted him to do, which is rebound like crazy, set screens and roll like crazy, and just like protect the rim some. Basically doing none of the 30-year-old Dwight stuff where he's trying to post up or he's trying to do cool stuff. It's like the most bare bones, like Tyson Chandler, be a big that I've ever seen. And it was fine and it was good. And yeah, obviously he's big and physical and stuff. And he seemed to be on his best behavior, playing for LeBron, which is, pretty much true.
yeah.
And so on that end, he's the best backup center that Embiid's had in his career, which I guess is good. Depending on how you feel about Horford. But I don't know, you and I disagree with this about some things, but I like rooting, and maybe we don't. I don't know. He just doesn't seem like a good guy. There's been various weird reports over the years. He pisses off teammates. He wears out his welcome everywhere. He's criminally unfunny. There's so many things, and it's just I like rooting for guys that I like, and here's one who just I straight up don't. And so maybe he's gonna be fine. Maybe we can just ignore it as a backup center type, just do his job. But it bummed me out some yesterday.
I actually am with you. Not because I don't personally like him. Look, I would always rather root for somebody that I personally like, even if it's not as a person. I generally don't know any of these guys as people, but even just what they exude on the court, that's what I liked about Starks, right? Starks seemed like I've never met him. I don't know if he's a good person or not, but I sort of liked the way he was on the court. Look, I know part of the Morey thing is chemistry doesn't matter and yada, 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 and all that kind of stuff.
I don't know if that's necessarily true.
Well, it's sort of true.
He did. He said when we had him on the podcast, you asked him what's more important in a coach.
In a coach, but not in other players.
But I think that's part of it. I think if he said if he thought chemistry didn't matter, then he would have said being the best, having the best system and stuff. Well,
what I would say is that the same thing you said. I'm not gonna like every move that he makes. I don't like this move at all, really. And all I did was sort of innocuously tweet, I'm not sure about this. And I got a bunch of people back saying, that the thing that you said, they keep the MLE and they can use it on a guard. And
yeah, it's obviously not a bad contract. It's the minimum.
Yeah. Yeah. And this has nothing to do with me wanting Nerlens. The Nerlens thing was just funny. That's it. Everybody hates him. I honestly can't think of another player in the NBA over the last 10 years who is more universally disliked by every teammate he plays with than Dwight Howard. I can't think of anything. And the comparison to the Lakers is, and again, if he's a problem, they can just cut him. Yeah. He's league minimum, right? It's not that big a deal, but this is what we have to deal with. So it's what we're going to talk about. The enormous difference between the Lakers and the Sixers is the Lakers have LeBron and Anthony Davis on that team, and we're going after a title. And I don't know if you remember it, there were all these things where LeBron had to talk to Dwight Howard before they signed him, and they all had to be sure of it. The Sixers don't have any of that. There's no established culture. There's no leader. There's no anything. And it's funny, I was thinking about it. What would I hate more? Joel Embiid hating Dwight Howard or Joel Embiid really liking Dwight Howard and getting along with they're both terrible options. So it might end up fine. And I understand that the contract part of it, I get it. And yes, it is definitely a good backup center for Embiid, but he just nobody likes him. I don't need a super popular guy, but even people even like Rajon Rondo. There are players that have been known as bad guys or bad chemistry guys or whatever that other players have liked. Can you think of anybody who's like, man, I love Dwight Howard. I can't think of any of them.
No, I mean,
I don't love it.
The benefit, like, I don't think it's that much different between the Sixers and Lakers, aside from the very big difference of LeBron. I don't think, Anthony Davis wasn't a guy who like commanded a bunch of teammates' respect in New Orleans or anything.
Sure, but the LeBron difference is enormous.
Yeah, and so I think the benefit is that we have Danny Green, who played with him last year, and I would guess that Daryl or enough people talked to Danny and was like, "Yeah, how was it? Was it bad? What are we talking about?" And so if Danny's signed off on it, at least he can tell people. I think Alyssa told me this. At least Danny can tell people to like ignore Dwight. Just be like, "This is we don't have to listen to."
Yeah.
He's also like an anti-vaxxer, and he's just a weird guy, and like, it's a pandemic. We don't need that energy in anything. It's very bizarre. It is a backup center, so whatever. Yes, they can cut him. It just feels like on a team where there's always, armchair psychologists looking, grading for body language, and me constantly pushing for a safe trip to Napa. It just feels like, is it like, why throw this into the mix? Kem Birch would never do anything to anybody. He would just do the same stuff, and I've never heard him talk, and probably never would. And so there's a bunch of that stuff. I also do, from a more basketball perspective, and maybe they still go for it, I also really want a legitimate stretch five behind Joel. And Dwight's obviously not that. I would have loved a like Terrence Ferguson for Luke Cornett trade. Would be really good for me.
For the minutes that Ben's on and Joel's off.
Right. And so, I mean, I think Doc's going to want to run pick and roll. Dwight is a good screen and roller. We still don't really have a pick and roll guard to do that stuff with. I mean, I guess Seth can do it some, Maxey can do it some, but he's a rookie. Shake a little bit. I think Doc probably saw Shake play one time and thinks because he blew up the Clippers, he probably thinks he's one of the best players in the league. And so I still waiting to see how more things shake out. I do think that there's more to come. They have currently, if they sign Isaiah Joe to a real contract, and presuming they keep Paul Reed on a two-way, and we got to talk about the other guy on the two-way also, by the way. Don't sneak that past me.
I'm not trying to sneak it past you. I just don't even know his name.
That's fine.
So
they have one available roster spot. They have 14 out of 15 roster spots filled. So I think that there's going to be some movement. I would still like we can get to free agency. I would still like a couple more. There's two more things that I would like. And so it's fine. It's annoying. It might blow up on our faces. To me, the risk reward is like not super worth it. It was weird because the Lakers, he tweeted that he's going back to the Lakers, and then the Lakers were like, no, not quite. And then they went and got Montrezl Harrell. And so he had to delete the tweet, and he's coming here instead, which is, okay. Not everything can be great, you guys.
It is. That's another shirt. It is. I mean, obviously they got Harrell, so that explains that. But the fact that the Lakers didn't want him back on a minimum either is, I don't know. He's just so lame. And okay, last thing is his. He did play the role last year.
Yeah.
But his whole I want to get paid thing.
No, I want to get paid the minimum. That's what he got.
Yeah.
Not like it's like, hey, back up the truck for the legal least amount you could pay me.
I do worry like that we get the other Dwight showing that he's still got it. I don't know. He's so lame. Yeah. He's so lame.
I was also bummed.
Man.
I thought that the Lakers were going to. It seemed like the Lakers were going to sign Marc Gasol, which I would have liked. Get his ass out of Toronto, please. Hopefully that is still to come. But Chris Dunn just signed with the Atlanta Hawks, 2 years, $10 million. I'll be breaking that news all podcasts, just so you know.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Chris Dunn, who I don't know, to me doesn't pass the eye test.
I like
everybody
Chris Dunn.
seems to like.
Any zero offense, all defense. If the defense is that good, and it is, that's my kind of player. Guy who don't even.
Do you think
play
the defense is that good?
Yeah.
When I watch him, I don't get that.
He's a
I don't
monster.
get that vibe.
He's a monster as like a guard defender, and I love those guys. That's kind of what I wanted Josh to be, and Josh was a fine player. He didn't fit here. I think he's probably going to pop more in Dallas, and he certainly was a better player in Miami with a little bit more role or system or whatever it is. But defensively, I really wanted him to like be an absolute like monster, and he was fine. He wasn't a liability. There were a couple times where it got weird, but I wanted him to be more of like a, that Drew Holiday. I guess it was rookie or second year Drew Holiday where he locked up Kyrie. Like that's what I wanted it to be. And it kind of never was.
Well, I think we are the victims of seeing him every game rather than only occasionally. And he is one of those players that always looks like he's trying very hard. So when he's going against your team, I think you sort of get the impression that I think he's always trying hard, and defense, especially for guards and wings, if they look like they're trying hard, they seem better than they are. It is a perfect way to describe him that he was inconsistent. I think he would have great defensive games where it would look like he's the guy that you're talking about. And then he would have games where he was completely clueless, actually. It didn't seem like we expected a 9 and he was always a 6.5. I thought some days we got a 9 and then other days we got a 3.
Yeah.
He was pretty inconsistent.
I will say back to Dwight, I will say that there's some value to me because they haven't had any guy who would just like clean up shit and rise over and dunk it over people in a while, basically since I guess Rashawn probably. And too often guys go. I mean, Horford went up. No one went up softer than Horford for most of the season. And so it'll be nice to just be like easy buckets is something that this team has not had enough of. And so hopefully we can just be like he gobbles up offensive rebounds and put it back, and just like I don't want him. He shouldn't be allowed to talk. He shouldn't be allowed to dribble. Like there should be more restrictions. I need the LeBron rules to apply here.
Before we get to, I wanted to go over the available free agents that are left and get your sort of thought. Before we do that though, a big payday for 2 former Hinkie guys. I want to give a congratulations to Jeremy Grant, who signed the Hinkie special, which, everybody thought was so shameful, is now getting paid $20 million a year. To be like,
I have no one has any idea what Detroit is doing. They have 18 centers. No. One of them is Jahlil Okafor. They're not.
Sounds familiar.
They still have Blake Griffin. Jeremy, the report is that Denver offered the same amount, 3 years, $60 million, to stay in Denver. And Detroit offered him more of a role to play in the offense, which I get. I mean, especially I think Jeremy probably is like, my speculation is that he just didn't want to be the like do everything guy around Michael Porter Jr. who just gets to kind of do whatever the fuck he wants. I know my agenda is coming through here, but like,
of course that's what.
But I mean, like Denver really, they have Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr. and Nikola Jokic, who are all, I think Jokic's defense is actually okay, but they're all like pretty below average defensive players. And in Michael Porter Jr.'s case, like very below average. And so they're like, hey, Jeremy, you do the rest. And it's just like, well, fuck that. Like, I want to go, I don't want to, like, at a workplace where I'm asked to clean up all the messes, like, take me somewhere else. I want to go play some ball. And so I hope Jeremy kind of betting on himself, kind of just going to get his shots up. I respect it.
Well, maybe he just had so much trouble breathing in Denver. We'll never know if that was the thing.
There you go.
Actually,
speaking of agendas.
Yeah, no, come on. I'm just being honest. It's the way that it is. Before we actually get to the other free agents, I want to talk about our sponsor, Kornblau and Kornblau, Adam Kornblau, the official law firm of the process. Now, we know Kornblau and Kornblau, the premier boutique personal injury law firm, but we always have our listeners reaching out to Kornblau with other legal issues as well. And we got a couple of great emails. Hey guys, Greg and Lancaster here. I'm the guy who had Eliza Hardy Jones's album pick, The Innocence Mission, play at his wedding, and the guy who is still willing to get the RTRS tattoo that never happened at the Mike Scott Live Ricky. Recently, I reached out to Kornblau with an issue that I knew wasn't one of his go-to things, but I didn't know who else to contact. The lease on my car was up in February, and I bought the car out. After paying for the car in full, the financing company charged me for my next car payment. Fast forward 8 months and many phone calls later, I still hadn't gotten my refund. Note, this was only like $300, but I'm the parent of a toddler. A dude's got to pay for daycare and diapers. Unsure of what to do, I reached out to Kornblau and told him what was going on. He got back to me via email very quickly and had me call him. He walked me through what I needed to do to gather evidence of all my phone calls to the leasing company over the last 8 months. Long story short, Kornblau got him his money. And Kornblau takes nothing out of it. And then we got another email from Chris, whose girlfriend's mom was having trouble with a crazy landlord, got to Kornblau. Kornblau helped them out. Look, he wants the right thing for you. That's what Kornblau does. So if that's a personal injury lawsuit, if you're in a car accident, medical malpractice, injured at work, slip and fall, all that stuff, he's the guy. His entire law firm's been doing this for 40 years. His parents started the law firm. He runs it with his mom now. He's great. But if you need a lawyer for anything else, if you're one of our community, he's going to help you because he wants the right thing for you and he wants the right thing to happen. He's passionate about what he does. He is a very small person with a very big brain and an even bigger heart. That is Kornblau. If you think you might have a case, give him a call or shoot him an email like everybody does. Doesn't cost you anything. 215-576-7200. Don't worry. He can go to you. You can go to him. You can do it virtually, whatever, or email Kornblau at kornblau.com. Kornblau spelled with a K. The rest, the and is spelled out A-N-D, and the rest
Is also with Ks.
Kornblau and Kornblau, the official law firm of the process. All right. Sixers, as you mentioned, 2 roster spots available.
Wait,
Let
we
me
didn't talk
throw
about
out-
Christian Wood.
Oh, yeah. Right. The other, right. I only mentioned the one Sixer with a payday. Christian Wood, 3 years, $41 million.
God bless him.
Where did he go again?
Houston. He's possibly saving the franchise because I think they're not rushing to trade James Harden. I think that people were saying, well, now that we got Dwight, the Harden is even less likely, but I think it was pretty unlikely to begin with after the moves that have been made.
Well, they could just cut Dwight. Like I don't even
but they wouldn't like go out and sign him if Daryl knows that there's ugliness there, and he thought that there was a good chance of us getting him. You know,
maybe he thinks it's not. But I don't think it precludes anything.
No. I mean, it leans further that way, I would say.
Yeah, at least right now, he's like, well, this isn't happening right now. I might as well do this and take advantage of it.
Yeah.
And I think Dwight on a minimum contract is obviously pretty tradable as well. Sure. Yeah.
But Jeremy and Christian Wood making a lot of money. Again, we were right. Okafor making very little money. Again, we were right. I would also add Portland trading first rounders for Covington to go basically save the
2 first rounders.
Yeah. To basically go save the franchise there. Just possibly missing piece, Robert Covington. I mean, it's very exciting. It's very exciting for us.
A lot of rightness. Mm-hmm. Now, I always said Christian Wood wasn't good. Yeah. So I was not particularly right.
I'll let you jump in.
Thank you. Well, we all have I think as a group, we were right. Mm-hmm. KOC wrote this long Christian Wood article and I texted him and I was like, dude, that guy is a dog in the bad way. I was like 13th grader. He's going to suck on a good team. And I still don't believe in Christian Wood, but I'm glad he got paid.
There was I think Kevin O'Connor talked to him and there was like, he has been like, the reason I liked him at UNLV is because like long wingspan, bouncy, like untapped potential if he got his body right. Cause he was was out of shape and a little bit fat. And
you can tell by the arms.
And it was definitely, there were smoker's arms definitely for a little bit there. Mm-hmm. And it was a while. Like he wasn't working out. Yeah. Like it was bad. And I think he reported that he got cut from his team. I think it was in China. And once that happened, he was like, it was a wake up call and he like got himself right and took the time to get there and blew up in Detroit last year. And now he's making a bunch of money. Like and to be basically the starting center for the James Harden Rockets. And he's a dynamic player, and he works his ass off on both ends now. Like he's, has still room to improve and stuff, but like it's exciting. It's exciting when guys like have potential, and then even if it takes a few years, like to realize it. And that is why, once again, I've never been wrong about anyone. I just haven't been right yet. Joe Alexander is succeeding overseas, and if he so chooses to come back to the States, he would be a very serviceable player. Come back, Joe.
Well, I would, because there's a lot of people saying, well, he couldn't get off the bench for Brett and blah, 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 blah. It's probably possible that it was necessary for him to fail to go, and like you're saying, getting cut in China, it was necessary for him to fail to realize what he was doing wrong. I don't think that it means they could have just kept him here, bouncing between the G League and the Sixers, and he would have ended up like this. He probably needed the reality check of what ended up happening to become what he's become, and we'll see what he becomes. I mean, there's two paths, right? There's the what's his fuck who was on the Heat and now he's on the Trailblazers. No, the center.
Oh, wait, who? Say it again. Who's on the Heat? The guy.
Yeah, he was on the Heat and now he's on the Blazers. He was a problem, and the Heat got him,
Whiteside.
And he signed it. Whiteside. There's the guys that figure it out and get paid and then go back to whatever they were. Mm-hmm. And then there's the guys that figure out, get paid, and keep getting paid. And for his sake, I hope he's the latter, not the former.
Sure. He also had COVID at the beginning of this. He was kind of like in that second after Gobert got it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And then he played against, because the Sixers Pistons played
against us.
The last game. I think that was the last game before it shut down. It was like the Jazz game. Was it Jazz Thunder? Yeah, the Jazz Thunder game got canceled. They were like, go home, get out of here. And it was like the third quarter of Sixers Pistons, and it's like, what's going on? Why are we still finishing this game? And they're like, we may as well finish. We're already here. It was very, very, what a weird time that was. Man.
Still never revealed who on the Sixers had it. The only confirmation I ever got is one person who definitely didn't, but that was it. Still never know who got it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's another thing that Christian Wood hasn't played since then, at least publicly. There's so many there's so many strange things that's been in this long layoff for especially a ton of teams that didn't play in the bubble, and also guys who opted out, and also like the draft prospects of knowing like who has worked on their game, like who has really like. Who's going to come back this season and all of a sudden like be like, hey, I can shoot, or like, hey, I put on 20 pounds of muscle. Like what? It's very odd. And they're going into free agency like without knowing this. And I guess you could like ask around and stuff, but these evaluators, whether it's draft or free agency or whatever, or trade, it's like there's so much stuff you just don't know. I mean, like somebody definitely got fat. Somebody got like really fat over this break. And who knows? And then there's not much of an off season. If they were like, all right, I'll wait to see who I sign. Now he's ramping up in the next 3-4 weeks to be like, okay, basketball season. Let me shed this tubbiness. It's very odd. We're living through a very strange time.
To your point about the oddness, for some players, it seems like they just played. And then for a whole host of other players, probably more players, they haven't played since March. That's such a long time. Yeah. We're talking about 9 months, 10 months, whatever it is. Wild. I'm curious to see who got fat. I hope it's somebody really surprising who got fat. I would love to see if Jeremy Grant got fat. All right. The Sixers with a roster spot available. Here's, who is still available. Some of these more possible than others. Dario, still out there. Not what they need. Wouldn't hurt is where I put him. He's a restricted free agent. Curious to see where he ends up.
I think if there was a Mike Scott and maybe Mike Scott and Zaire, or Mike Scott and Terrence Ferguson type trade for maybe a like a quick penetrating guard type of thing, then you can then go and sign Dario. But without that, I think that there's other more pressing issues you need. Although I would love to have Dario back.
Yeah,
and I'm sorry, show with Joel.
Fred VanVleet, who I think would be awesome here, is obviously going to get much more money and would take some sort of creative sign and trade.
Yeah.
Bogdan Bogdanovic, if you're going to sign him for anything of note, it would be a sign and trade as well. He would be super helpful here. He would be a good player here. The guy that you don't like him?
Oh no, I mean you're in the upper echelon right now. I'm deep down in the Sixers Adam free agency rankings where he did not rank Dwight Howard, which is very funny.
Which is funny. You're the only guy, pretty much. KCP does not provide what they need, but would be useful. And I'm curious what the market for somebody like him is. He'll probably just end up back on the Lakers, I would guess. But he's an unrestricted free agent. He made $20 million. He's not worth $20 million. He's probably like a $8 million a year player.
He played. I think he made himself some money playing in the bubble and
in the finals
championship run. I think that he'll get Marcus Morris got like what 464. I think if Marcus Morris is getting that much money, KCP can get that much money. I would guess it's closer to the 15 million range than the 8 million range.
Jay Crowder, who I think is generally infuriating when you watch and not as good as you think, would be helpful.
Had a hell of a run there in Miami, though.
He did, but he shot at a clip that he cannot shoot at. I think that's the difference.
It feels like he'll probably just end up back in Miami.
Langston Galloway.
Yeah, now we're talking.
Yeah, see, he's been an almost Sixer in our world for a long time.
Yeah, 3-and-D guard out of St. Joe's. He'd be great. I mean, be totally fine.
Shabazz Napier, I don't like actually, but he's available. DJ Augustine is the guy that people have mentioned a lot, who I think would be perfect in terms of he's the same kind of guy we can't stop, who ends up scoring a bunch of points on us every time, who can get to the rim, who can also shoot, he's like good. I actually think DJ Augustine through his entire career has been underrated, and I would like to have DJ Augustine.
I would love DJ Augustine. I think he would shoot 31% from three here because that's how it goes. My ideal offseason right now is trading Ferguson for Cornette, signing Augustine at the mid-level, and finding some big-bodied defensive wing at the minimum. That's where I'm at with this. I think that they're a little bit thin on sort of switchy 3-4s. You know, it's pretty much just Ben, and if you think Tobias, Matisse needs to put on weight. We'll see about Zaire. They just need Danny a little bit. But I would like one more just give me someone with a largish. I mean, I'm not going to say Wilson Chandler because I don't think he is alive, but somebody in that vein, Justin Anderson, Torrey Craig, although I think they'll probably send him, Denver probably keep him, even Andre Robertson is just a, defensive, specialist, sort of like a lefty reliever with an odd delivery. So even Jakar, if we want a homecoming there, I need one guy who's just a big body that is capable of banging a little bit with doesn't have to be this person, but a LeBron type. I need someone that can at least switch on to him because Ben is really the only one right now. And so I think that if Ben would get hurt and he's coming off injury, then they're really, really thin in that department. So that's what I'm looking for.
Let me tell you, that whole rap was very Mike in that you got Zaire in there again. That's right. Who knows about Zaire?
That's right.
And then we need a LeBron type at the league. Oh
no, I mean to cover LeBron type. To just be able to just absorb contact. I mean that's the whole thing. It's I think I'm looking at some of these signings that you're seeing are in that 15, 18, 11, those kinds of, and it seems like Wes Matthews just got the minimum from the Lakers. And I think the thing that Daryl, we talked about this before, but Daryl, the most undervalued, the best way to recoup value is to sign a legitimate star to a max contract where they'll be undervalued and then a bunch of minimums. And it's either basically it's stars and scrubs. And so in that middle where you're hey, we're paying, I don't know, I like Joe Harris, but we're paying Joe Harris $475, I think it was. That's a lot of money for Joe Harris.
Let me tell you, I'd rather give Joe Harris $475 than Jeremy $360, to be honest with you. Yeah, I think Joe Harris is awesome.
I love Joe Harris. It's just a matter of some guys become that's a guy you can get at the minimum type of guy.
Yeah.
Alec Burks just got 1 year, 6 million, 5 million, 6 million from the Knicks. Like there's those cheap guys, and then there's for some reason guys that still have a reputation. So I don't know. So I do think that there will be large-bodied Wilson Chandler shaped men available at the minimum for them to get, just as like an insurance policy in case Ben goes down, to just absorb some contact. That's what I'm looking for. But then, yeah, I mean, other guys that you mentioned, I would love a Chris Chiozza. Maybe not a guy you've watched much, but went to Florida, played good ball for the Wizards. Quick, has balls. That's an exciting. I mean, I also wouldn't mind Neto coming back. I know that would disappoint some people. I wouldn't mind your boy Tyler Johnson if you wanted to bring him back. I like a lefty at least. And then we're into the Shaq Harrison territory, where a guy that is, again, not much of an offensive player, but is an absolute monster on D.
Well, we've mentioned Austin Rivers. You didn't want, I did. I like Austin Rivers.
We have now that we have Dwight, we have Seth Curry, who is his father-in-law is the coach. Enough. Give me some regular, nonpartisan people. We can't. This is becoming too much like a Thanksgiving dinner, and I don't want it to be. This needs to be a cohesive unit.
Right, especially now because there's more than 10 people on the Sixers roster, and your Thanksgiving must have fewer than 10 people. Jeff Teague is available, but he must be cooked. I haven't seen him play consistently in 4 years. He's probably fine, right? I don't know.
Probably fine.
And Reggie Jackson?
No, not a fan.
No.
Not a fan. That would be in the bad Thanksgiving dinner department as well.
Not even for like $4 million or something.
No.
Okay.
No, I don't think that. I think there's just these guys. I'd rather have more. I don't think he's a great find. Depending on what shakes out, I would like one of the stretch fives. I think Frank Kaminsky would be fine, just as because he can shoot and he's not a total stiff on defense. Jeff Green, if he doesn't re-sign with Houston, although he might get a little bit more money, would be totally fine as a small ball stretch five. Anthony Tolliver, maybe. These are all guys listed in Adam's very great free agency report on Red.
The number one most viewed written piece on the Ricky website of all time.
Wow.
Officially.
Good for
yesterday.
Adam.
Yeah. Congratulations.
And he fucked it up right away with Dwight.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, should.
Way to blow it.
Yeah, 10,000 words and he got it all wrong.
It's
How did
interesting.
he not even mention
even like
Dwight
Kent
Howard?
Bazemore. I don't know how much he's going to get, but if they use the MLE on him, that'd be interesting. There's guys, and I think that the Sixers are not right now a deep team, but like okay, and they're shooting in the starting lineup and on the bench. There's like I sort of think that Seth is going to be a sixth man. What do you think about that? Do you think they're going to end up starting him?
I don't know. I really think it depends on whether Milton starts.
Right.
I think if Milton doesn't start, then Seth Curry starts.
Well, I think it's either or. It's one of those guys.
I think, it is really they've gotten to a point. The two things they were missing, right, were perimeter creation and shooting. Now the thing that they're missing the most is perimeter creation. What's his name? Shake is better at that than Seth Curry. But I do think what Seth Curry does will provide such an enormous boost to Simmons and Embiid that every minute that you're not playing him with those guys, you're not optimizing those guys.
Yeah.
So long story short, I think Seth Curry's going to start. Maybe.
I wouldn't mind it. I wouldn't necessarily hate it. I like the idea of having a juice guy off the bench in the way that, Doc used Lou and Montrez with the Clippers.
But Milton could be juice guy off the bench.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I think Seth has mostly been a bench player his career, although he started a lot alongside Luka last year. One of the best catch and shoot guys in the league. That's what you want alongside Simmons. They always do that thing where it'll be the first, I guess I'm thinking about Brett. I wonder how Doc will do it, but the starting lineup plays the first, 5 minutes together. Mm-hmm. Joel sits for 4 minutes and then becomes like Ben's team with like the guys he needs to be around him. It's interesting. So I'd be interested to find out how it shakes out. But I like the idea, and it feels like we haven't had one of these guys of having a sixth man that comes in and has to be like really accounted for. And especially if he comes in alongside Matisse, and all of a sudden it's like on one side you have this one of the best shooters in the league, and on the other side you have one of the longest and most disruptive defensive players in the league.
You know, the more I think about it, the more I think it's, well, we have to see who else they get. Maybe they get another creator. But if they don't, the more I think about it, the more I think it's Milton. Because I think you could say that Shake Milton is more similar to the Lou Williams type than Seth Curry is. Because Shake Milton can create his own shot, and he is a good shooter, but not, crazy shooter. Most of what Seth Curry is going to do is going to come from actions from other guys. So, they could even do the thing where they start Curry and Jeff Green and, Danny Green. Yeah. And, and Ben is primary ball handler as he was, and
I think Danny, Tobias, Ben, and Embiid are locked in to starters. And it's just a matter of, do you want Shake as a longer defensive player starting out? If he's put on some weight, hopefully he has, with running him some pick and roll actions with Ben or Joel or whatever, or do you want Seth starting and just having like those kinds of nuclear actions with like, dribble handoffs and all that stuff that Joel likes to run? It just depends. I think they'll probably mix it in.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Before we talk about an important Sixers anniversary, we're going to talk about the guy you need to go to before your anniversary.
Wow.
Come on. LL Pavorsky Jewelers. The Sixers anniversary coming up in a second. LL right now. LL just fucking humming along, man. Humming along, helping people get married. I always say, the holidays are coming up. You get Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year's, and you might think it's cliche to get to propose during one of the holidays. I think it's awesome. People love getting proposed to. That's my opinion. There's not a ton of people who get proposed to and are like, oh no, you did it during the holidays. LL is your guy. Look, if you're going to get engaged, LL is your guy. 202 Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners have purchased engagement rings from LL Pavorsky. Or if you're just looking for a Christmas present, if you're looking for you're way in advance, you're looking for a Valentine's present, anniversary present, even if you just want to be nice, that's another good reason for a present. LL is your guy. He is the only jeweler I know that isn't going to pressure the shit out of you. He's the only jeweler I know who's going to be honest with you. And he's the only jeweler I know who tweets about the Sixers just incessantly and knows about our anniversaries more than we even do. He's been there for 32 years, same spot. He's with the original sponsor of the Ricky and is a truly good man. 215-627-2252. All in-store appointments are done. All in-store, stuff is done by appointment only. So you'll be the only person in there, so they can sanitize in between each one. Lee at llpavorsky.com if you don't want to call him, if you hate the phone. The store is at 707 Walnut. You can actually tweet him at LL Pavorsky. As I mentioned, he's very, very active. And if you don't feel like coming in the store, you can handle it all online as well. Always supports our charities. Providence Animal Center, Coded by Kids. And as I said, good guy and total whack job. LL Pavorsky Jewelers.
This holiday season, use the full mid-level exception on your jeweler.
All right, here we go. 1 year anniversary yesterday of the Ben Simmons first regular season three-pointer against the New York Knicks. Do you remember where you were when that shot happened?
No, I barely even remember the shot, honestly.
Oh, really? Really?
I remember the Guangdong Long Lions more. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, I do remember that one because I saw that one live. I was actually in the car for the Knicks one. I was driving it. I'm not looking at a calendar, but my guess is it was on a Wednesday night because I believe I was heading home from Rights to Ricky Radio with Giglio, which would have meant I was in the car for the first half hour because I think that the shot was in the first quarter. So, there you go. One of the most historic shots. I do remember the Long Lion shot as well. Do you want any early over-unders on Ben Simmons 3-pointers in the 2021 season?
I have no idea. It'll be what it is, and we will adjust accordingly. I hope he shoots.
Right.
We've been saying this for a while. The assumption you have to make is that he doesn't. The assumption you have to make is that this is who he is. Everyone's talking about him as Jason Kidd, and maybe possibly, but like, there's just never really been a situation where this has happened. I mean, I guess there's, you have to look at like centers, right? That have, Marc Gasol or something like that. Like guys who their careers started in like whatever, 05 to 2012 or something. Mm-hmm. And then as this, whatever revolution of like you needing more space and big shooting and stuff came in, they became a serviceable play. Like Brooke Lopez, like that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But even those guys had like serviceable mid-range jumpers. I think the assumption is he just right my brain is that it's like just probably won't happen, and there's never going to be real reason for it. It's just this is who he is. That'd be my assumption.
Yeah, I think honestly, I think it is fine, but I do, and I think you would probably agree. I do push back on the notion that like he in his head, if that's what he's going to be, what he is. He in his head is going to have to redefine who he thinks he is as a player, not in terms of quality of player, but in terms of what he should be doing in the game. And like this battle about you really can't be the primary ball handler of a team if you're not going to shoot or get to the line at just an obscene amount. And, they did it for all of one game in the bubble preview series, not even in the real bubble. And it looked great, with him sort of doing that elbow stuff, that, the get the ball there and do it like a real four does, the stuff that Bam Adebayo does. But he's just going to have to rethink who he is. And if he does that, I think he's perfectly capable of being a really, really effective NBA player, a really, really good NBA player without shooting. If he doesn't do it, I think he's always going to be a really good player who at the same time is a hindrance in reaching the ultimate goal of winning a championship. And we'll see what happens, I think it's a lot of things. It's not just the 3-pointer. It is getting to the line, 8 or 10 times a game, So, and the most important thing about him shooting from the perimeter is it gives him the ability to create, on the perimeter a lot easier than if he doesn't shoot. Yeah. And he's, so we'll see.
For sure.
Bunch of good mailbag questions. Oh, what were you going to say?
We got to get to the two-way situation because that is the most important thing. And a couple waivings. Norvel Pell has been waived from a regular roster spot. Mariel Shayok has been waived from a two-way. Norvel was a bouncy and fun weirdo.
Great dude.
And I'm glad he got a shot. And he seemed really likable and stuff, but it just seemed like he was already like 27 or 28 or something like that. There's not a ton of upside there. And Shayok was a guy that I never really liked, who shot well in the G League, but looks pretty slow and unable to do much on the defensive end in the NBA. But I know he's one of your guys, so I'll give you this moment to, mourn his loss.
Well, I used the phrase, I realized on Twitter when I talked about Shayok that not everyone understands when I call someone a 13th grader. A 13th grade is an insult to a college that isn't hard at all. So if somebody excels in like a 13th grade college, it means they're not that smart. So when I say that Shayok is a 13th grader, I mean he can dominate the G League, but in the NBA, he can't. And I think watching him at both levels really hammered that home. Even though he was so fucking slow, like really slow, in the G League, it didn't matter because he could at least get enough space. Like when we were at the Ricky Blue Coats game, he was unguardable. I mean, it didn't matter how close anybody was to him. He was a really excellent 3-point shooter, and you would see him get to the NBA, and everything just took so long to happen that it was impossible. So I love Mariel Shayok. I love watching him. Don't think he was an NBA player.
Yeah.
And And Norvell Pell, was fun. Seemed like a great dude. His tweet made me a little sad yesterday.
Yeah.
It was, like a thank you for everything sort of thing. Actually,
Seemed like a nice guy.
He's a genuine dude that everyone seemed to like.
For sure.
Yeah.
But they bring in Dakota Mathias, who's
that?
There you go. So Paul Reed is probably going to be on the guy they just drafted at 59 or 58 is probably going to be the first two-way spot. A big man added to Paul that's kind of somewhere in between like a weirder Rashawn meets Jeremy sort of falling down. And Dakota Mathias is the other one. He is a two-guard combo guard out of Purdue. He played alongside Carson Edwards at Purdue for a little bit, and they were like devastating shooters, kind of like the Big Ten equivalent of like Steph and Clay, like a little bit, in that Carson Edwards was Steph and Dakota Mathias they like moving around, like multiple actions, setting screens and stuff, flying around. He's like 6'4". He had graduated a couple years before, so he played overseas for I think a year or two, and then was in the Mavericks G League system last year, I believe. And he's a really, really good shooter. He shot it at every level he's been at. Has a high release point, so he can get that shot off kind of whenever in tight spaces and stuff. He's a smart player, pretty good passer. Will maybe be able to hold up a little defensively, but he's mainly a shooter, and he's a smart player and is a good like relocator off of movement and stuff. So I don't mind. That's as far as like what, as teams are still figuring out what exactly they want out of the two-way spot. And I think they actually just changed the rules to allow players to, now there's no more like gaming the clock system of the two ways.
There's just a certain number of games. I think it's like 50 games or something.
And so I like the idea of one two-way guy is like a project in Paul Reed, and that you can, you're building him, and hopefully he improves and develops over this year, and next year he can be, one of the primary backups to Embiid. And the other guy being like hey, if everything goes wrong, we have a shooter in-house that will know his job, do his job, know his role, like all that stuff. And I'm like a safer bet. I think he's like 24, 25 at this point. He's fine. He's totally fine.
Well, it's good to know. I saw the name, and I just, instead of Googling it, I was like, I'll just wait for the pod.
That's right. There you go. That's totally fine. You're welcome for that.
Let's get to the mailbag, the Lorenzo Brown mailbag, which, by the way, because of the new G League rules, the Lorenzo Brown mailbag, like the Lorenzo Brown Elliott Williams thing, will no longer happen. The assigning him to Delaware, then assigning him back to Philadelphia, then assigning him back to Delaware, that thing won't have to happen. So
I think there'll be some of it. I think that predated
the rule,
the two-way. Yeah.
Huh.
We've been doing this a long time.
Brought to you by Kinetic Skateboard. Yeah, really long time, man. Really long, almost a decade. Kinetic Skateboarding. I always feel bad for Kinetic. Bennett Kinetic. So they get these sneakers. I'm not a sneaker guy, but they get these sneakers that very, very few stores get. And every time I see it posted on Instagram, the directions are always in caps about how to get involved in the raffle. And they always look so irritated. Like, I know they have people sleep out for these things. So they have these Nike SB turduckens, which are pretty awesome. Like, I remember asking him about the dog walkers. You got to get a raffle. You got to bring canned goods. He's telling people, remember, you got to wear a mask. Like, anyway, Kinetic has all these shoes that you're not going to get anywhere else. And then, like I say, it's hoodie season. The Kinetic hoodies are sweet. Tons of them, tons of clothes. And if you're going to go, snowboarding, they're your home for it too. Promo code Dave Silver for 9.1% off your first order, kineticskateboarding.com. Oh man, I didn't write who this was from. Hi guys, and Viva La Mori. Spike, I'm wondering, Mike, I'll ask you as well, obviously. I am wondering what you think the ideal playlist length is for sharing a mix of music. I tend to end up at 20 songs. It seems like enough to create a mood and also require good sequencing, but not enough to make it hopeless to listen to in one sitting. Also seems to be only 2 to 4 songs shorter than what Gen Xers remember as a mixtape.
Wrong podcast.
Carl Landry Record Club. I'll bring it up to Mootlu. What I would say is, the reason I enjoyed mixtapes and when it made playlists much shorter is that you actually had to make decisions. You actually had to determine. It's like a roster, right? You can't have every player. If Mike was given a playlist of players, he would have everybody who ever played in college, but you don't have that. You only have a certain roster. So I would say if you're not making it for a specific length of a drive, I would say no longer than 90 total minutes, 45 minutes aside. That's what I would say. Basketball question. On a hypothetical Embiid Harden roster, who is the one, this is a great question, who is the one current Sixer who would be most important to have after the trade?
After trading for Harden?
Yeah.
Ben Simmons? Probably a cheat answer, probably.
That is a cheat. Let's say they trade Simmons.
I mean, it matters a little bit less. I mean, you want good defenders, good wing defenders. You need, it's, I think, normal. I think it's not like on this roster, this stuff is very valuable and this stuff is less valuable.
So who's the one player? No, the salary cap implication's gone. Totally gone. Because you could cheat and say, well, Tobias is gone, then we have salary, like just player wise. Because I think it's Seth Curry.
I'd probably say Danny Green
over Seth Curry.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I don't know how much Harden's willingness to defend comes and goes. More, he does defend on ball. He sort of falls asleep and starts just getting sort of very watchy off ball. And you need guys around him that will at least, make up for his mistakes and cover the tougher guy and be able to hit shots. So I would probably say Danny then.
I would say Seth Curry. And he says, from a guy working as a hospital physician during the 2020 reckoning, thank you both for a remarkable year of podcasts and for Morey, because obviously the two of you did that as well. So thank you. And as a hospital physician during 2020, boy, thank you. This is a funny email from Matt. Dear the guys at Ricky Sanchez, I was the weirdo last fall who said that this year's 76ers were basically the 2015 Eagles for three reasons. They signed a star player away from our rival, DeMarco Murray from Dallas, Al Horford from Boston, a different style of play than around the league, up-tempo Chip Kelly offense for starting 4 power forwards, and traded our best offensive player, LaShawn McCoy, Jimmy Butler. Mike made a passing comment and was clearly disinterested after you read the email, but I was not deterred. As in the offseason, after one embarrassing season, 4 things happened. New front office and coach, get off bad contracts like Byron Maxwell, DeMarco Murray, trade the player we got for our best offensive player, Kiko Alonso and Jay Rich, and drafted instant contributors. I'm not saying I told you so, but can you ask the DraftKings to open up 76ers championship odds for 2022?
Yeah, there's always,
he was right.
There's always cross-sport futility in the Philadelphia area for sure. That all makes sense. I agree.
Yeah. This comes from, is it J.A. or Ja? I don't know. I don't know what I wrote down. Sixers question, who are some notable lesser known, this is a good history lesson, notable lesser known Sixers players throughout the process you had high hopes for and preached on to others about how good they'd be. However, they turned into busts. For example, mine was Furkan Aldemir. Who are your most famous ones in that aspect?
Well, so many of them hit. So it's so hard to even think about.
So hard to know.
I didn't think about people that didn't. It's tough because it's hard to. There were guys that I was excited about, like JP Tokoto, as a guy who I believed in as like a, very bouncy athlete that's fun in the open court. But I never thought that he was going to be like a star player. So it's a matter of like when I look at second rounders. And by the way, my guy DeAnthony Melton just signed a big contract to stay in Memphis and is now, as Shams is reporting, has the highest net salary from his class, which is pretty cool as a second round pick, which I like. But Bobby Portis to Milwaukee. Okay.
I'll tell you, there's nobody that looks like he'd be more infuriating to watch on your own team than Bobby Portis.
Yeah, I agree with that.
He's annoying. Yeah.
But he's very physical. Punched Nikola Mirotic right in the face.
Well, I guess there is one player that is a little more annoying, and he's on the Sixers now. So aside from Dwight Howard.
Maybe KJ McDaniels.
Yeah.
I liked KJ McDaniels. I thought that he was a very sturdy body. You watch what guys are doing now. Basically, like most of the 3-4s in Miami, and a couple other. I mean, like some guys in Denver. A couple of those guys that were just like, "Hey, you're big enough to absorb contact." And you have some, like, the thing about KJ is that like he wasn't a non-zero with the ball in his hands. Like he was the number one guy at Clemson. And so I did think like, okay, so he's going to take a little bit of a backseat for now. He's crazy athletic. He's physical. He can be just like a defensive stopper type thing. But with the upside of like, hey, maybe if he, keeps refining that handle and working on a shot, he could be someday turn himself into like maybe more of a scorer type of, the 3-level scorer or something. It would have been a little unrealistic, but it was like, he'll at least be an NBA player. And he just wasn't. Like, he's just not.
No. And Morey, remember, he went to the Rockets and he signed, I think, a 3-year deal for like $4 million a year or something like that.
That's right.
And just never, and the thing that happened with him too, because we got pretty smug about it, was the first 10 games of the year or 15 games of the year, he had a pretty hot start shooting from 3. And it seemed like he was going to really be good, but he never got any better. It's hard for me to remember because I often conflate players that I just personally like versus whether I think they'll actually be good or not. Cannon is a funny one because I don't know if I think he's good or not. I just know I like him. I remember being really in on Matt Koshwal, who was never on a regular season roster. I don't think.
Not even close.
Yeah. I really don't remember. Obviously Furkan was a guy that was on both of our big boards, the top 10 on both of our big boards.
Korkmaz, you mean?
Korkmaz, yeah. What did I say? Oh, I just said Furkan.
Yeah, there's multiple. You got to differentiate.
Yeah. TLC was also on our big boards.
Yeah, but again, I mean, Luau was like,
he's fine.
Turned himself into a fine playable player. Not as good as I thought he could be, but yeah. And there is obviously the factor of how much the air quality in those EuroLeague games are versus NBA arenas, and how much air with a Darth Vader mask Korkmaz could get in an arena in wherever, Turkey. And that they just don't have that level of air density in the States.
Well, I'm going to do 2 more questions with the hope that some Sixers signing happens now rather than right after we stop.
Fair.
So Ned emailed in a jigsaw, so we might as well do a jigsaw. Do that. I love listener jigsaws. All right. Ned gives you 2 questions. Obviously, these are both for the rest of your life, if there's any new Ricky listeners here. Option number 1, you accidentally spill a medium amount of water on a stranger once per month. Number 2, you accidentally drop and crack a stranger's phone screen twice a year.
Oh, definitely the first one. Definitely the first one.
Water every month?
Oh, yeah. Not even close. Cracking a phone screen, I'm paying for that phone screen every time. And I'm apologizing, and I'm saying so many things, and sacrificing my life and limbs for, to make up for it. Water is just like, I could blame somebody else. Somebody bum me.
Can I ask you if I were to change this, because I don't think he set the stakes up properly, if I were to change this to a medium amount of water on a stranger once per week and a stranger's phone screen once per year, would that change your answer?
Yeah, I'd probably do once a year. Once a year is fine.
Okay, yeah. And where are we going? Man, I had a good one.
It's hard to imagine touching a stranger right now. Being near anybody other than Alyssa is very hard for me to imagine. So
yeah, well, I think it's hard. That's one of the things that's crazy watching television or movies or anything where people are close to each other without freaking out about it. I mean, definitely
anything I'm watching, and I'm just, it's, The Sopranos. I'm like, wait, they're not wearing a mask. It's like, my brain is fully broken. It is over. It's never coming back. Speaking of never coming back, Raul Neto signs with Andrew Sharp's Wizards.
Oh, boy. Would you trade Tobias for John Wall?
No.
No. Okay. All right. Last question. He's got Will has a basketball and a non-basketball question. Basketball question. Dear Spike and Mike, after seeing Miami's success, it reminds me of how few teams continually have a proven record of getting big-time free agents. Even more so in the NFL, many NBA teams have a problem holding on to their stars. It seems like a no-brainer to me that the NBA should offer comp picks to teams who lose max-level contract players, maybe a pick swap in the next 5 years with the team the player went to. I've never heard anybody talk about this. Obviously, the fix for this that most people offer, which would help fix it, is no individual salary maxes, but a hard cap would sort of change this whole thing. Yeah. And then no draft if they want. What do you think of the compensatory pick?
I like the idea of a compensatory pick, and they do it in baseball. I think that there should be some. It'd have to figure out, like, I don't know if it's like an arbiter or something of how much value this person has. Maybe it's like if they're an all-star or something. If an all-star leaves via free agency or something, the team that gets him, you have the option to pick swap in, 3 years or something, like 2 years or something. That sounds like a reasonable thing. There should be, like, some small market teams are small market because their owners are cheap. And there's plenty of big market teams also with cheap owners, but some it's just like, and some do a bad job of surrounding that player with like good players so that they're blowing their prime and stuff. So it's not every time a small market superstar leaves is like a tragic story. Sometimes it's just like, I want to get the fuck out of here. This place sucks. But sometimes it is, and I think that there should be some option, some like compensation that isn't just, and now you can tank, which they would probably anyway, but at least it's a little bit more. I like that idea.
By the way, I mean, we all love Hinkie, and we're all big fans of the first 3 years of this. It was a lot of fun. The number of draft picks that the fucking Oklahoma City Thunder have acquired for the future is they could field 2 teams. It's one of the most impressive things I've ever seen. You have to imagine they're going to end up trading for somebody with them. They can't use all the picks, but it is, man, I feel like we have to keep following them in honor of how this podcast was built.
Mike Muscala, of course. Yeah. I mean, it is very easy, and it was when Hinkie did it, to not give a shit about the current season or the next season or whatever, and just say, like, I'm just going to milk teams for picks. I'll take on salary. I'll take on Al Horford. I'll take on these plenty of teams around the league, and just like, I'm going to load up on picks. And he's doing it. He's doing it to Sam Presti's doing it to like the nth degree in a way that Hinkie didn't. I would say, the backlash to Hinkie was probably a lot more than Sam Presti's getting. Sam Presti is getting like plaudits for it, whereas Hinkie was an embarrassment to the game from a lot of people.
But one thing that Presti is able to do is they have not been bad yet.
That's true. But I mean, yeah. But I guess that's right. Hinkie started trading those pieces off at that first deadline. So I guess they were already bad. Yeah. The difference for me is Oklahoma City started from a place of, we have all these guys. We don't think that they're going to hit their, this is no longer going to be a contending team. Although this team, they did surprise a lot of people this year. And thanks to Mike Muscala, gave us Tyrese Maxey. But they had so much more in the coffers, like so many, like the guys that are there are significantly more talented and tradable for value than the 2012, 2013 Sixers were. Those Sixers had Drew and fucking nothing. Like Evan Turner went for 2 picks. Obviously, Indiana was very, whatever Chris Palmer, whoever said that Indiana is now like a contender because they have Evan Turner. Don't tweet things. We won't forget. Spencer Hawes went. I mean, they started acquiring. So there was never like, trading Dennis Schroeder. Dennis Schroeder, aside from Drew, would have been the best player on that team, on that Sixers team. Like the Thunder are starting from a way higher place than those very mediocre Sixers were.
It is amazing what he ended up getting Russell Westbrook for, and then 1 year later, what Russell Westbrook's value is, what he got.
And that is alarming, I would say, just the Westbrook thing, sorry. For Daryl, like, that was a horrible trade. Like, that was a horrible trade. I know that there's reports that it wasn't him. There's reports that it was the owner and that Harden wanted it and blah, blah, blah. And they were now in a pinch to trade Chris Paul because him and Harden weren't getting along anymore. Like, of course. But that was a horrible trade. And we have to be able to call it out for what it is because the Rockets were worse. And then the guys that they traded became better. Like, if you acquire Russell Westbrook for Chris Paul and a fuckload of picks, and then a year later, that team would not trade you Russell Westbrook for Chris Paul back, that sucks. Like, you fucked up. You did a bad job. And so Daryl is a guy we like and we trust, and it is, exciting to see him unfuck the Sixers in pretty easy ways, honestly, so far. And Tyrese Maxey falling to us at 21 is quite a gift. And I feel good about where the Sixers are and are going, but like Daryl Morey is not like uncriticizable. Like there's been a lot of misses and one very, very recently.
What I would say about the report, because it was Tim McMahon, who's pretty plugged in, who said it was Fertitta or Fertito, as Kendrick Perkins says, and Harden who wanted it, is that McMahon has no benefit at that point, considering that he is still covering that team to protect Daryl Morey in any way. It's just why I tend to believe it. And you sort of wonder.
Certainly I want to believe it.
Yeah. And you certainly also, I wonder if that trade was just sort of the moment that he was like, well, I'm not going to be here after this year.
Magic Johnson face.
Yeah. So, and then non-basketball question from Will. I feel like I know your answer to this one. At what point did you guys feel like you actually started to get decent at podcasting? Can you point to a particular Sixers event, interview, or episode where you really could tell that your skills had grown from where you first started?
I have no idea. What would you say? What do you think I was going to say?
Well, I don't know that I don't know if I remember, excuse me, I'm sorry. The time when I cut out my coughs. I don't know that I remember when I said, oh, we're good at this now. I do remember specific events when I realized that the podcast was popular, that I hadn't really ever considered. But I would say this, that during the COVID NBA stoppage, the fact that we were able to do 2 podcasts a week and still have people in on it and thank us so much was an example to me that we're good at it. That's it. There are several moments where things happen with the pod and I was like, wow, I can't believe how many people listen. This is really cool. It's really neat. But I would say that the COVID stop and the fact that our podcasts were like 25% longer during that was an example to me that we're good at it. You don't have anything?
I'm thinking, I remember doing the Hinkie interview in 2013 and making a joke about Ricky Sanchez and Hinkie getting it.
Right.
And being like, okay, this is what it is. And I think us coinciding with this podcast coinciding at least at the beginning with Hinkie getting here and tearing it down was very a fortuitous timing thing. I think if we had started this podcast in like 2010, it would have been like, I don't know. They suck.
What are we doing this for? Yeah. Yeah. It would have been like starting a Sixers podcast last year. Yeah. Honestly. And if you've never
DJ
listened
Augustine,
to it.
3 years, 21 million in Milwaukee.
That's helpful for them, actually. That's good for them. They didn't get Bogdan, but that's a good signing for them. Fuck.
Is he going to start for them?
Well, they haven't traded George Hill yet, right?
No, George Hill's gone. George Hill is in New Orleans. No, George Hill's New Orleans.
Oh, right.
And
He was part of this.
New Orleans, he just went to Oklahoma.
Steven Adams trade.
George Hill's in Oklahoma City. It's going to be George Hill, Al Horford pick and rolls.
So it's Drew Holiday, Middleton, Giannis, Brook Lopez, and then who's the fifth?
I think it could be Dante DiVincenzo if they don't trade him, but I think they might.
Yeah.
I think they might go Augustine Drew. I don't know. Interesting.
Did DJ Wilson got traded, or was he part of the Bogdan trade?
He was, I believe, he was part of the Bogdan trade, but he's certainly not a guy that they've considered starting at any point.
I love him. I think he's good. And if you haven't listened to it, the last thing, obviously the best part of the Hinkie interview, the best two parts, is I asked him if Spencer Hawes is the best three-point shooting big man in the NBA. And he doesn't answer it as usual. But the best part
I think he said
when,
maybe.
Yeah. It wasn't a confirmation, yes, but he didn't deny it. The best moment, obviously, is when his phone drops out and we panic and left it in the podcast. Like I had to call him back, I think. He was with Mike Preston. And final thing, we did not request that Hinkie interview. It was offered to us. It was like in the third month of the podcast, which is wild. So, and I think he was on his way to the airport, right? Mm-hmm. To go overseas to scout
Spain,
people.
I think, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we didn't get a signing, so I assume as soon as we stop this, we'll get one. How did the Bucks sign somebody to a 3-year, $21 million deal? Well, aren't they over the cap? Do they have a trade exception? How does that even happen?
Well, couldn't sign somebody in a trade exception, but it's very odd. I think they're kind of just throwing the rules out this year. They're like, it's a pandemic. The rules are so long anyway. Seth Curry has posted a picture of himself or his Sixers jersey. Looks like he'll be wearing 31. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good number.
Was that Hollis's number?
Hollis was 31, wasn't it?
Wow. It's good. It's going to be good to see another 40% shooter from three.
I was going to say
slashing in that number.
Yeah, they like the NFL. You have to play certain positions to have certain numbers. For the Sixers, you have to shoot 40% from three.
That's right.
To have number 31. All right. Well, something will happen, and we'll talk to you after it does. Are you down with TTP?
Yeah. Lick face.
If you don't fuck with me, then I won't fuck with you. If you don't fuck with me, then I won't fuck with you.
If you don't fuck with me, then I won't fuck with you.
If you don't fuck with me,
then I won't fuck with you.
But if you fuck with me,
I'm gonna fucking kill you!
Time for plan B.